Right, online shopping. The retail environment is convenient for many. Shoppers have become more wary of cybersecurity and privacy of personal information. According to the South African Banking Risk Information Centre, or SABRIC, South Africa currently has the third highest number of cybercrime victims worldwide. Derek Cikes is the commercial director at an online payment plan provider, Payflex, and says there's a lot to look out for to avoid falling prey to cyber criminals. He's here in studio with us. Good to see you. Derek, important conversation, this one.
It is. You know, a lot of people talk about what's going on in the cyberspace at the moment, and there's lots of horror stories around what's going on. But you know, if you put a couple of facts to it, what people will see in the press a lot of the time is that there's about 2.2 billion rands worth of cyber attacks that are happening on an annual basis in South Africa. Put it in perspective, there's about 14 billion rand that's being spent online on an annual basis, so it's a fairly large chunk. So yes, it's a real issue. Yes, there's a lot of it going on, but you know, we mustn't forget that in real life outside of the cyber world, there's a lot of crime going on as well. So it's not an isolated setup. And
we have to learn to protect ourselves.
Correct.
I mean, we've grown accustomed to the fact that crime happens all over the place, but sometimes we think, okay, well maybe on the cyber world we're okay, but we're not okay. So what are those signs? What do we need to look out for when we're making and doing online payments?
So, to put a little bit of perspective to it, the online world is changing on an ongoing basis. When you and I started interacting on the online world, we'd grown up in a world where we didn't have cell phones as children, we didn't have internet as children. A quarter of the users of the internet today were born when cell phones had already been introduced into the market. Internet was already around. So that part of the market is already starting to know how to work digitally. And they're taking what they know in the real world and they're applying that to the digital world. And those are the kind of lessons that you and I can learn, is to say, well, what would we do in the real world and how would we transpose that to the digital world? So you wouldn't interact with somebody who you didn't know or who you weren't introduced to. And that's the same kind of thing that you want to do in the digital space. You're not going to go onto a site that you don't know anything about and then proceed to give them all of your information. You're not going to respond to an email from somebody you don't know and then immediately provide them with your ID document, your credit card details, etc. So if you apply those kind of general common sense things to the world, then you'll start to be a little bit safer.
So if I'm going to make an online payment, obviously there are a couple of very well-known websites out there that we know, we use all the time here in South Africa. And I suppose we can say that they are reputable. But I suppose they are also subject to being hacked, or they vulnerable, or aren't they? I mean, they've got our banking details. We put them in there, even though we may have to supply maybe our CVV number, or we need to do something, but our information is still out there.
Our information is out there, and there are a number of standards that are being applied to companies that process payments or hold your credit card details. And those standards require very strict encryption in the background. So if somebody does hack those sites, they cannot just access your information, because what they're going to access is a whole bunch of gobbledygook that they can't really understand. You know, I saw a stat a little while ago. It was actually in a movie where the guy said, when you talk about 16-bit encryption, you're talking about the ability to have something like 17 trillion different combinations of a set of data. So for someone to hack that is going to be near impossible. So what you're raising is a very important point, is that what we should be doing is we should be in a situation where we're providing our information to trusted sources. So a company like Payflex, we do a couple of things. One, we make sure that the merchants that you're dealing with are trusted and do exist. Secondly, the information that we keep on our side is encrypted, so that when you pass that information through us, we make sure that it's not going to get out into the open.
Very quickly, because we've got to wrap now, but just if there are some top tips that you can give people, just in terms of, if I'm going onto a site, perhaps I've never bought from them before, and I am going to go in and I'm going to buy from them, but to see if they're reputable or not, how can I trust them? What do I look out for?
So my top tips would be, one, do you know this company outside of the internet? Is it an offer that's too good to be true? Because if it is, it's too good to be true. You know, if you're paying online, make sure you're using a reputable payments company like a Payflex. And three, has somebody else used that particular site in the past, and then use that reference to make sure that it's safe.
All right, so it's quick, fast, and I know we'll talk more in depth about this, because there's just, I mean, I already have probably only ticked one of those boxes you've told me, because a lot of the times I've gone in and kind of, bought from a site that no one else has. I don't know, I just like the stuff that they're selling. They are local and I want to support them, but it's tough. But
Yep.
Try and stick to those rules. Derek Cikes is a commercial director and online payment plan provider, Payflex, just reminding us about what we should be aware of when making online payments and purchases to avoid falling prey to cyber criminals. Take care out there. Gotta go. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone. Sakina, I know you've got to say goodbye too.
Yeah. All I'm saying is goodbye, because it was so apt that you did that particular interview.